During the close to our event here today, and again, want to thank all of you for joining us. We're very excited to welcome, to have this closing session, our board chair, Barbara Gellman-Danley, who is the president of the Higher Learning Commission out of Chicago. Barbara will be joined by Stephen Moret, who is the president and CEO of the Strada Education Network here, DC and Indianapolis. And again, we want to thank Stephen and Strada both for their support for this year's report that we previewed at the top of this event, and also for sharing their thoughts about the value of data in the forward to the report. And we're very pleased to have Barbara and Stephen give some closing thoughts to our session today. Barbara.
Thank you so much. As we close today, I really want to thank all of our sponsors. Scott mentioned them at the beginning of the session. I'd also like to thank our speakers for today. This has been a fabulous learning experience for me. And as chair of the Credential Engine Board, I'm honored to share that role with all of you for your leadership on the staff. And with our fellow board members who have done a fabulous job as well. I would like to commend Scott Cheney as our president for an outstanding job and work and leadership as we celebrate our 5th anniversary. And for those of you who have not already picked it up, there are excellent staff doing amazing work behind the scenes at the Credential Engine. So thank you to all of you. Today, as I talk with you, Stephen, I want to point out that you have an unbelievably exciting background related to workforce. And in reading about you and getting to know you, I think you're a perfect individual to make some concluding comments with me. I wondered if you would add to the excellent discussions we've heard from New Jersey, Texas, the Equity Council, state policy, and as well as from a senator in Indiana. Senator Braun. So in your viewing of this and in your experience with the report, what are your observations that you would like to share?
Sure. Thank you, Barbara. And I'd actually love to share a little bit about Strada's work as well and how this really fits in. We're very excited about the work that Credential Engine is doing. I want to congratulate Scott for the team's work in the last year and really over the last several years as well. It was great to watch some of the presentations today with a central focus on equitable pathways to opportunity, which is what Strada, of course, is all about. We're also delighted to be a sponsor of this report and a supporter of Credential Engine's work. And I'd encourage all of you to not only read the report, but read the forward as well that we were delighted to co-author. My colleague, Michelle Chang, our Chief Strategy Officer, along with Matt Siegelman, the head of Burning Glass Institute, who's doing amazing work, and also our great partner, Rick Torres, who leads the National Student Clearinghouse. Barbara, may I just share just a few quick slides about how we see the future?
Sure.
Great. Let me just bring this up. Hopefully everybody can see that. We've actually spent the bulk of this year really building a new vision and strategic plan for the future of Strada. And it's a plan that really envisions the type of work that Credential Engine does as more central to our future work. So we're really delighted to be a part of the gathering today. There's a number of challenges that we see, and this is just a little snapshot of a few, but last time I checked, we had about 30 million full-time employed adults in the United States making less than $35,000 a year. Obviously something we'd like to see change. By the way, on that statistic, as you well know, some really big equity gaps on folks that are contained in that population. We also have a big issue that even many folks that are completing post-secondary education are underemployed. Last time I checked, about 10 million full-time employed adults with a bachelor's degree or higher not working in a college level occupation. The vast majority of those folks not really getting much of a college earnings premium from doing so. Additionally, there's a big mismatch of skills. Interestingly, despite the fact that we've been recently over the last year at roughly an all-time high of job openings, there's also a mismatch of skills between employers and job seekers. It's causing both many individuals to not be able to get good jobs and to be able to maximize the use of their talents, but also companies struggling to meet their needs. So as we sort of juxtapose all that and think about that as it impacts our work, We worked internally with our board and with input from many peers to really cultivate a new North Star for Strada that we're really proud of and excited to be focused on now. And that is to collaborate with learners, educators, employers, and policymakers across the country to bring to life a post-secondary education and training ecosystem that provides equitable pathways to opportunity. That is the central focus of our work. There are 5 key things that we are focused on to bring that to life. The first one, and then really a new focus for Strada, is clear outcomes. This is really all about building the data infrastructure, the transparency, the interoperability to really enable people to make better informed choices and to enable many of the things that Credential Engine talked about today and really talks about in their work every day. We really view data as something that has the power to change lives. And while it doesn't solve all these problems I've articulated by itself, it really creates fertile ground for better solutions for the future. And so you're going to see a much bigger focus of Strada and our work in that area, championing transparency, championing efforts to connect education and labor market records, supporting organizations like Credential Engine, like the National Student Clearinghouse, like others that are really working to advance this cause. There are several core equitable or sort of practices that help improve equitable pathways to opportunity that we're going to be championing as well. Quality coaching and guidance, affordability of post-secondary education and training programs, paid work-based learning opportunities as well. And then finally, employer alignment. While we are focused on helping individuals that face the greatest challenges accessing post-secondary education and economic opportunity, we have to recognize that ultimately we have to provide a better talent pipeline for employers to be able to meet their needs in order to accomplish what we're trying to do with individuals. And that'll be working on things like incentives for higher education to better meet the talent needs of employers, but also encouraging employers to do more skills-based hiring, which is yet one more way that we see Credential Engine coming in and the important work that they do. So I just really want to salute Scott and the entire Credential Engine team, as well as the board and all of you who have supported the important work of this organization the last several years. We're really proud, Barbara, to be a partner in this effort, but we're especially excited about what we're all going to be able to accomplish together over the next few years.
Thank you very much. I can say from the position of an accreditor, or a very large, if not the largest accreditor for higher education in the country, at the Higher Learning Commission, we're also very excited to be part of the Credential Engine work. And I might ask you, Stephen, do you have any thoughts on the quality assurance of all the credentials that are out there? What's the range and what should we be looking at? I ask you that because from your work at Harvard on, academic through your workforce, I'm sure you've thought about what are the quality assurance issues?
Well, I think there's some big gaps, right? I mean, if we talk about, for example, non-degree credentials, right? The availability of comprehensive quality outcomes data is really quite limited, right? And that's a big gap that needs to be solved. And there are different ways to do that. We're going to probably be advancing several of them in parallel. I think one of the other things we have to recognize, though, is as important as credentials are, as important as higher education is, there's really a whole ecosystem that impacts the extent that the ability of people to really be able to access opportunity, be able to even recognize opportunity exists, to understand the pathways to get there, and then to overcome barriers that stand in their way. So I think we need to look at this in a holistic way. Certainly, the work that you and others do in the accreditor community, absolutely central and foundational to that work. At the same time, I think we need to look at that broader ecosystem as well. And I really see the role of Credential Engine as being kind of, in a way, sort of part of the underlying infrastructure that's going to help all of this work better.
I certainly agree with you on the broader infrastructure. I took a program at MIT that required me to list all the stakeholders in higher education, and they go far beyond higher education. There are so many individuals, companies, corporations involved. In fact, as we all know, there's somewhat of a shrinking number of enrollees in higher education, which we hope will level out due to demographics mostly, and certainly not helped by COVID, but demographics, equity issues. And therefore, a lot of people are taking shorter term degree certificates in higher education. And they're working either within higher education at their own institutions in partnership with online providers, or the online providers are out there in front of everybody. So I agree, it's a really exciting time. If you were to be king for a day and recommend next steps for the Credential engine, what might that be?
Oh my gosh, I don't want to get in trouble with Scott or his board, but I mean, I certainly think where Credential engine is headed already, I think is a really, really positive direction. You've hit on, there've been different topics today or different discussions today that kind of hit on different aspects of how Credential engine can help build a future with more equitable pathways to opportunity. I think about the promise and the potential of learner employment records, LERs. And Credential engine's work is really a critical piece of bringing that to life. I think that's going to be quite important. I think as we think about building a more robust set of clarity, transparency on outcomes, particularly for non-degree credentials, the CTDL that Credential engine has developed, I think will really be essential in helping, bring that to life. So for the most part, Barbara, I think I would mostly just encourage Credential engine to stay the course. And to continue the kind of collaborative engagement that they've really had across the ecosystem with different sort of actors, if you will, different institutions, different higher education leaders, for whom their work is important and essential to the future. And we're certainly at Strada going to be thinking about ways that we can be helpful going forward as well.
I'm going to ask you one more question, because clearly in the region where you live now, you've done, and other places, I'm certain you've done advocacy. You've been able to talk companies into coming to a certain area, and you certainly know, I'm sure, how to work with elected officials. For the listeners today, what would you suggest as far as advocating for the new credential landscape and its needs at the elected official level?
I think first of all, Barbara, thank you for mentioning advocacy. We believe that certainly as we think about the future of our work, that Strada and some others in the field need to put more emphasis on public policy, both state level and at the national level as well. And we're certainly going to do that. I think part of what we have to be able to do is kind of be a little bit more comprehensive in our thinking. If you sort of think about higher education in the last, say, 20 years, I realize this will be a slight oversimplification, but we've had so much focus on the very important topic of educational attainment, access, retention, completion. And this is absolutely critical, and not just for economic mobility, but for other reasons as well. But to the extent that we want to help folks more consistently be able to achieve socioeconomic mobility, I think we have to recognize that there are some other things that are also really critical to make that happen beyond just the acquisition of credentials or degrees, right? The coaching part, the affordability part, the work-based learning opportunities, the better efforts to align with what employers actually need, and then ultimately as well, the data, right? The underlying data and data infrastructure and the way that we communicate the value of credentials is essential as well. And so again, you can sort of see, I think again and again, this central role that Credential engine and its work is going to play as we all seek to go forward. But to answer your question directly with lawmakers and policymakers, I think we really have to look at the environment a little bit more holistically, and certainly keep educational attainment at the center, but also think about some of these broader issues in the ecosystem that are essential to help people more successfully achieve mobility.
Thank you for your comments. I would like to wrap up the moment and this session by saying it's been a wonderful experience working with the Credential engine, Scott Cheney and staff, and my fellow board members. I recall more than 5 years ago, as we celebrate the 5th anniversary, I received a letter from Jimmy Marasotis from the Lumina Foundation inviting me to be on this new board. And I had no idea, and by the way, most people did not at that time, what the Credential engine was or could become. And in the past 5 years, the growth has been palpable and just very impressive. And I encourage all of you who are listening today to support the efforts of the Credential engine in your states and beyond. And I want to thank once again all of our sponsors and the outstanding leadership and staff at the Credential engine. Thank you.
Barbara and Stephen, thank you so much for that wonderful closing out of today's session. I too want to extend my thanks to all of our funders and sponsors, to a very dedicated and engaged and visionary board of directors. and to a fabulous staff, both those who were with us at the very beginning, the staff we have now. None of this would have been possible without their commitment and passion and dedication. So thank you to everyone for joining us today, and hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the week and a wonderful holiday season. Thank you.